Hey guys from the Thoughtful Gardener. Well, it's one of my favorite times of year where the peonies are blooming. These are a beautiful heirloom from the 1850s. These actually belong to my grandmother. Dardy was what we called her. Louise was her name. And they are wonderful because they're actually fragrant. They're white with just a tiny hint of fuchsia pink, and I wanted to share them with you. I really wish you were here to smell them. So let's take a look and see what's blooming in the garden. So I have some knockout roses that were currently on the property and have remained on the property. I like to have the color, and my husband absolutely loves roses, so that we've kept them. But these are some of the only roses on the property. They're really quite low maintenance. They just have to be sheared every once in a while, and they really actually need to be cut right now. So we will be trimming them here very, very soon. What you also see are some of my favorite bulbs this time of year. These are alliums, and I just love them. They're like little puff balls on long stems. They are just glorious. They look like lollipops, don't they? But the bees just love them. It's a little cool here this morning in central Pennsylvania, and there's not a lot of bees flying because of that. So hopefully we will see them this afternoon. To the left there is our peonies, and you'll see many of our peonies here. These were part of a division of peonies that have existed in the garden, had become really ginormous, and I needed to move them due to the fact that I had a tree that we transplanted, which you'll see here on this video very shortly. These are some of the natives that are coming up in the garden, and some of the things that we planted last year that are already blooming. This is probably one of my absolute favorites. Here in the shade garden under this huge maple tree is tiarella. Really love how airy it's been blooming with these white spikes for over a month. It really looks very happy where it is. Taking you into the garden some more to see some of the beautiful peonies. This is one that's called Bowl of Beauty, and you'll see why. I first saw these when I was in France years ago at Monet's garden. I had never seen anything like that. It really looks like a sea anemone lives inside this flower, and these are kind of cool. They actually will shut in the evening and go to bed, go to sleep essentially. So you see that there's a few more in the back here that haven't opened yet. So really super excited to enjoy these. They're a lot of fun. They're very, very papery and delicate, but they're quite lovely. And we went to a garden over the weekend that has a huge collection of peonies, and they had them all grouped together. My husband really liked that look, so we're probably going to be grouping more and more of my peonies together instead of scattered like they have been. So let's take a look at what else is blooming. This was on the property when I moved in, this beautiful clematis, but it was planted in the wrong place. And I certainly want to tell you that, if you find that something's not working, it's likely just not in the right conditions. And that was certainly true of this. It was underneath a set of stairs. I recognized the leaf and I brought it up front, and every year it just gets lovelier and lovelier. And it's really putting on quite the show this year. And this is a native tree that I transplanted, one of our very first trees that bloom. It's a redbud that is a weeping redbud, and you can see those heart-shaped leaves. Aren't they pretty? So more of our peonies are set to bloom in this garden. So I'll take you over to this side. Again, a lot of this shrub layer existed already. The Weigelia is a favorite of the hummingbirds. I have seen them out here visiting. They love those throat-shaped or trumpet-shaped flowers. And here you can see some of the other peonies that we've collected. I just absolutely love this one. It's very, very rugged, very lots and lots of petals. Makes it kind of look like a rose shape, doesn't it? This one doesn't really have a smell though. But it's been a lot of fun to see all of the insects that are on here. Some I'm not so thrilled about. We are starting to see the spotted lanternfly nymphs, and I do come out here and trap these guys in the night, and I'll show you how to do that on another video. Um, but we've really enjoyed this springtime weather. We had a couple of days of 90 degrees, but now it's cooled back down. It's overcast, perfect spring weather, and the bulbs really last a lot longer when the weather is nice and cool. Here's some additional alliums. I find that the bees really love this one. It's called Globe Master. You can see how large they are, and I just leave these in the ground. They come back year after year. It sent up a funny little spike this year. I've let it grow because I think it's kind of cute, but they've never done that before. And then behind that, if you see these flowers here, these are Spanish bells, and a friend of mine had them in their garden last year, and I just love them. I just think they're very delicate, and I like how they move in the wind. Behind that, the purple and white flowers are a variety of bachelor's buttons. These are cut and come again. Once these bloom off, I'll cut them down, and they will continue to put out flowers. They've already been blooming for several weeks, but they'll continue to bloom. And these are some irises here in the back that you see that are blooming. And I always have trouble with this little patch over there. I think what happens is we always get a late frost, and it seems not to be too happy when that happens. I've got to get better about covering that. You also see some foxglove peeking up. I had planted that last year. It's a biennial, which means that those seeds drop down and send up another plant. So super excited to see it blooming. Actually not sure what this white shrub is called, but I will definitely put a little mark on the video so you can see what it is. But these little tiny delicate white flowers, I do see little bees visiting these, little teeny tiny bees. Some more beautiful peonies here. Now these are really cool. They've been open now for a few days, and you can see they're starting to turn light pink. If you watch the beginning of this video, it's the exact same flower, but over time it just continues to get lighter and lighter, and then you can see again that beautiful center here. So I usually bring some of these in. I've already done that this year. I brought some inside to enjoy because it got really hot, and peonies really do not like the heat. They're originally from Japan, and that part of the world is pretty cool this time of year. You can see these lilacs now. Super fortunate to be able to grow these. They only bloom for a couple of weeks, which is usually not my standard when choosing a plant, but these were on the property, and they smell just absolutely heavenly. Especially at night, they tend to release their scent. Here is a really special peony to me. This was my grandmother's. You saw some of the cut flowers that I brought out earlier, and if you want to bring them into your home and enjoy them, once they get to the marshmallow stage, which is not exactly where that one is at this point, but this one is just about perfect, where it's squishy like a marshmallow, you can cut those, wrap them in newspaper, and bring them in, and you can put them in your crisper drawer, away from things like apples that emit ethylene, but that will allow you to have peonies that bloom for a much longer time. And I think I'm going to do that because this plant is just loaded with buds right now. Again, you can see this gorgeous coral colored peony. It is really lovely, but you can see how it changes over time. The one on the left being younger, the one on the right being a little older. So I'm going to take you up to a different part of the garden. So this is underneath some native cherry trees that are about 25-30 feet tall. Lots of shade since they've leafed out, and you can see our native columbines as well as other columbines. Behind that, phlox, which hasn't bloomed yet. But I get a lot of comments about, well, you know, these things seed everywhere and it's real annoying. I don't want columbine seeds. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut these seed heads down. I don't really care for this pink one as much as I like the native one. So we're going to cut those seed heads off and not give it a chance to seed everywhere, because otherwise you'll be pulling out baby columbines. I do share and save seeds, and something I definitely recommend. But you can also see that this plant is suffering a little bit from what's called leaf miner. You want to remove those leaves as that occurs. Here's an additional shade garden with all different kinds of beautiful hostas and lots of different colors and shapes, and our native geraniums here as well. This is blooming up at my mailbox. This is a beautiful lacy looking elderberry. And so you can see the beautiful white flowers. So I was told you can actually fry these and then do it like in powdered sugar, and they're pretty tasty, which makes sense because the berries are tasty. Not that I ever get any because the birds usually get to them first. But you can see how pretty that is. If you like Japanese maples, an elderberry might be for you, and then the berries are actually really, really good for you. But I love these flowers. They sort of have a pinkish tinge at some of the places on the plant. Against that bronzy purplish foliage, it looks really, really beautiful. So I hope you've enjoyed this part of the garden. Again, a lot of these plants were foundation plants, and I've just continued to add over time. And I think that, you know, when you are starting out with your garden and starting with a palette that already exists, I never would recommend that you rip everything out. I think that it's frustrating to me to hear people say, well, I can't participate in Wild Ones, which is a native plant society, because they feel like that they aren't native enough. Guys, this isn't a contest. We're all learning here about nativars, straight natives, and cultivars, and I would encourage you to learn about natives. And if everyone could obtain natives and they were easy to get and fairly priced, then I think everybody would go native. But the reality is that what you can typically buy is not necessarily a native. And I also think that if you really have a love of something, as I do for my grandmother's peonies, you shouldn't have to feel like you can only plant native. That's not what this is about. What this is about is to encourage you to use natives when possible. When your existing landscape dies out, then perhaps what you can do is try to incorporate natives as a replacement into your gardens, which is what I am trying to do in my own garden. But you are not a failure if you don't go home and rip out every plant. And I hear some garden speakers talk that way to people. I'm never going to be that person. I'm never going to lecture you about what you have growing in your garden. I will certainly encourage you to think differently when it's appropriate. But I think that we bring people to this movement by encouraging. We don't bring people to this movement by scaring them into submission. That's never going to work. So, that being said, I hope you enjoy your day. I hope that your garden is growing beautifully. What's growing in your garden? I'd love to see pictures if you have it. Garden thoughtfully.